Welcome to Connected Conversations. I'm really grateful that you're here and sharing your time. If you like the conversation that you hear, please like it and share. I'm Emma from Unique Phoenix. I'm a soul coach, energy healer, wellbeing guide, and an unapologetic, curious soul. Connected Conversations is here to bring love, healing, and connection to our everyday lives through open and authentic conversations. Every single conversation, I'm privileged to interview women and men in our communities that are here being their authentic selves, sharing their unique talents with the world around them. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we can get to know them and what they offer much better.
Hello, my name is Michele Scott, and I am a positive psychology practitioner, a holistic counsellor, strengths profile, and facilitator, and also a numerologist. So there's lots of other tools in my kit. However, I feel that those modalities that I'm formally accredited in give my clients, give our audience. A really good idea of all of the knowledge, the skills, the experience I draw upon to help you learn how to become your own BFF, how to become your own best friend. And how we do that, we start to answer those questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose?
Hey, and welcome to Connected Conversations. They are here to bring healing, love, and connections to our everyday lives through open and authentic conversations. I am sharing time with Michele Scott today, numerologist, positive psychology, wellbeing practitioner, radio show host, our wellness community founder and CEO, and amazingness. But I also have the honour of being connected with Michele for around 10 years now. And to say that she is supportive of women's
Wow.
growth and business is massively underselling it. She's a powerhouse within women's
Oh,
entrepreneur and supporting women. So I really feel blessed to share some time with her today. Now, fair, to be really upfront and honest, Michele and I could talk for hours. So we have
easy.
absolutely checked ourselves this morning while we're doing this so that we can bring it to you and bring you some really amazing information, but also who Michele is, where she's come from, what she does, which is
Mm.
phenomenal. So thank you so much for being here, Michele. It's
Thank
beautiful to have you
you.
on Connected Conversations.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's always yes, thank you for having me in this session. Thank you for everything you just said, and I can't believe that it was 10 years ago.
I'd have to, yeah, I was trying to think, and I had to go
Wow.
back to what age
We
my
first met.
children would have been. And
It would
I've
have
got to
been
say, they would have been
2013,
early
2012.
primary school. So, therefore, that's,
Yes.
my son being
Yes.
15 this year, I would have, it'd have to be like nearly 10 years.
It would be. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And I'm going to share with you
crazy.
guys the first thing. Michele and I met, and we were kind of, it was a spiritual group, and
Yeah.
I turned around to her, and we were doing some sort of readings, and I said to her, the moment I saw you and saw
Mm.
your eyes, I'm like, I know you, and I also know it's from a past life. So I don't know how many,
Yeah.
I know you, and we've
We
stayed connected
definitely
ever since.
definitely had that connection, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's still proven now. Every time we get together, it's a dangerous
Yeah,
thing because we really can talk for a
we
long time. But
certainly can.
I want to get into it and ask your background, where it all began, because,
Mm,
numerology, and you are
mm.
phenomenal at what you
Thank
know.
you.
And, we're going to get to continuous learning. That's a little bit later. But to say you didn't just stop at numerology, like as in the
And I
basics of
didn't
it.
start there either.
So, okay, well, I don't
Yeah,
know this, then I don't
yeah,
remember. So, tell us about your
yeah,
background,
yeah.
please.
So, yeah, great question. And no, that's absolutely not where I started. So I always hark back to, as per my intro just then. Um, I always go back to my initial drivers really were, and what I spent many hours in my bedroom as a teenager pondering, is who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? Honestly, yeah, that was just, and I've said this in every time I'm interviewed. I start off with that because it was so important in getting me going on the journey. And you know what? In all of the work I've done personally and then professionally, and for all of the clients I've helped, it's always the very first place to start, with them, right? And and once you've it's the very first place to start for inside outside happiness, and it's the very first place to start for lasting happiness. And anybody I haven't met anybody who hasn't gone on that journey of self development, self awareness, self help, who hasn't come out the other end better off for it, right? And those who haven't done that, it doesn't matter how much they accumulate from the outside in, they're never happy.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
They're never happy. There's always that level of dissatisfaction and dis-ease, right? They're ill at ease in the world, and eventually, so yeah, that's what got me going. And what happened was, it just grew and grew until it took me off on a journey that I never planned. Really wasn't capable of at the time.
hang on. So what
Yeah.
do you mean you weren't capable
I
of it?
wasn't even
What's
capable because, and I was about to say that, most people when they go traveling in their 20s, they've been dreaming about it for years.
oh.
Yeah, they've been thinking about it, dreaming about it. Oh, I can't wait. And they save and they plan, and everything is in the right spot by the time they do it. Everybody knew they were going to do it. Me, boom shakalaka. That year, I was 23, and that year I went to Sydney with a girlfriend for a long weekend, and that was the extent of my travel. I was not outgoing. I wasn't the person then that you see before you now. I was much more shy, introvert, comfortable in my own group, probably like this in my very small group that I had, a group of friends that I had at the time. It was a shock to everyone. It was a shock to me. It just came out of my mouth. I had been in love with I'd been in love with my, I think he's my twin flame. We've discovered now he's probably my twin flame. I'd been in love with him since I was 14. We'd been on again, off again, finally came together again, got engaged, bought the house. I got what I wanted. And then 3 years down the track, I didn't want it anymore. And honestly, we sold the house and the money was coming through. And a friend said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Oh, I could go overseas." And as soon as I said it, I was like, "Where the hell did that come from? Who does that? I don't do that. I'm not that. I'm not that kind of person." Well, changed my life. Honestly, going overseas, those questions started to be answered by all sorts of amazing people that came towards me. Books I found. I ended up 4 months in India and Nepal again, completely unplanned. Didn't have any desire to go to India and Nepal. Hadn't thought about it. Didn't even, was nowhere in my physical realm. But again, a friend that I've gotten to become quite close to overseas. She was a journo. She was a bit of a hippie. She was the outside appearance of what I was like on the inside, right? I've never been a hippie in the way that I present physically,
Yeah,
but I've
yeah.
always been a hippie on the inside in how I think, and
Mm.
my attraction to all these spiritual, witchy, holistic stuff. And she was going to India, Nepal, and I thought it was great for her. And then we had lunch one day, and she said, "Oh, I'm probably not going to go now." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Oh, her friend had pulled out." And I said, "So?" Because I had taken off on my own, right? I met people at different sort of intervals, but I left Australia on my own again. It was just wild because I, again, was just not this kind of person, hadn't saved for it, hadn't planned on it. And so when she said, "Oh, my friend's not going," I didn't get it. I was like, "Well, why can't you go?" She went, "Oh, no," she wasn't that type. She said, "Oh, no, I can't go by myself." And just like that, I said, "Well, I'll come with you." And again, I was like, had no money. anyway, again, I don't know how I made that happen. Obviously, and see, because I have those spiritual beliefs, that soulful, that belief in we've come to do what we've come to do. We are here to fulfill whatever we are here to fulfill, and only you know what that is. So I look back on all of that and just see divine intervention, divine timing, divine interference, because none of these things were of my own will. And the 4 months in India and Nepal took me to a completely different level. And that's where, the spiritual really came in, the magic of believing, the power of the mind stuff, the law of attraction stuff, and yoga. And oh my God, it was just tremendous. So that's where it started. And really up until numerology, I was learning anything and everything. I loved astrology. I loved Chinese astrology. I loved dream analysis, Carl Jung, crystals, I mean, chakras, anything and everything. I went to the Australian College of Metaphysical Studies. I
Oh,
found them. I don't think they're there anymore, but I found
no.
them sort of my late 20s in Caulfield. They were amazing. I learned lots of amazing things through them. And then when I got to my mid 30s, that's when I found the Spiritual Institute of the Visionary Spiritual Institute that was run by this magnificent woman at the time. And then it was like, oh, I could learn this stuff like in earnest. And that's where a friend of mine was already studying there, and she babbled something about numerology. And again, like everything else that turned out to really mean something for me. As soon as I heard it, I knew. I was like, oh, what? What was that? By then, I'd learnt tarot, I'd learnt all sorts of things. And all of them, I always say this, that all of these other modalities answered part of those questions, were a little piece of the puzzle that made up the whole of who I was. That everything I found, Dan Millman, Astrology for the Soul, all these things, Richard Bach, they all started to put the pieces together, but it was numerology. As soon as I heard that word, I was like, oh, what is that? And she told me, and she said, oh, my brother had died by that time, and she said, oh, let's have a look at, I had two brothers, and they were both sort of light and day, and she said, let's have a look at their numbers, because she was still studying, and so she did their numbers, and then she told me through the numbers, these particular things about them. I was hooked. It's like, oh my God, I love that. And then I
Oh,
actually went off and studied that, because the internet was just sort of, you could go on the internet and just search for info.
hmm.
And I actually self-taught. I've mostly been a self-taught person.
Yep.
It's only in the last sort of decade that I've started to become formally kind of do these formal sort of courses, and yeah, so that's what I did. I actually, for the first 3 or 4 months, I researched it, I found everything I could on it, and I started running courses, but then I also started studying it at a visionary, and then I became a teacher, and here we are.
I love it because, for many of us, and I'll be absolutely like say to myself, sometimes the universe has to give me, like a really
Yeah,
good push. I
yeah,
need not just, they might give me gentle reminders, but then if I'm not listening, it'll be a few times that I'll, like, hey. But, what I really heard clearly in there is that when something struck you, you didn't
yeah,
need a whole bunch
yeah,
of
yeah.
reminders. You're like, off I go.
I know.
And
I've always been yeah. And that's because I just absolutely have that fundamental belief. Not to say that it hasn't been shaken. Certainly my faith was shook up. Actually, my brother died. I was glad I'd found that faith, because it really got me through my spiritual foundation. But when Mum died, we lost Mum in 2006. That really shook my faith, because I didn't believe that was going to happen. I believed that it was a lesson for her. I had all sorts of um, so yeah, not to say that my faith hasn't been tested, but fundamentally, that journey that began when I went overseas was just the foundation upon which the rest of my life has been built, and that's why. And, maybe in love, maybe in relationships, maybe in love, I don't always. Maybe I need to get shoved a little in love. but yeah, when it comes to all those other things, I've always just heard it. I've heard it and I've loved it. I've seen it, I've loved it. And I have been great at following those dots, but maybe love. We all have something.
Oh, absolutely. But I do love that you follow it. Like I said, for me,
Mm,
sometimes you know, I've needed a few little pushes. And, because you really, what you're talking about is when you have those shakes of faith, it's when your ego steps in and says, hang
mm,
on a minute, let me weigh in on this. And
yeah.
when it weighs in
Yeah.
too much, it really
Mm,
does rock that little foundation because it's so,
yeah.
most of the time ego's in opposition to soul.
Mm,
So I was like,
yeah, the
ooh, what's
fear.
that little shiny thing over there? I'm going to go follow it. And the ego's
Yeah.
like, no, don't do it.
Yes, yes, because it wants to keep us safe,
Oh,
wants to
yeah.
keep
And
us
keeping us safe keeps
stuck.
us the same.
Exactly, and keeps us stuck. Yeah.
But it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, and we will. Because I want to understand your business progression then. Because obviously you
Mm,
started in numerology, but you've grown some other pretty amazing stuff around that. So,
yes. So, and look, it's worth also saying, and this is what I love to share with any and all, when they're listening to us, when they're watching us. I love to share this that this was actually my hobby. This was my passion. This was my personal development for the longest time.
mm,
I did not, and this is why, yes, some people do get into these things and think, oh, I'm gonna, they're just gonna go from 0 to 10. It's a journey. Everything's a journey, and everything worth having builds one brick at a time. And for me, this was not. This was me, curious about me, curious about life. Why am I here? What is it about? What am I here to do? I mean, I just felt there had to be. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea, but I knew that there was more.
mm,
I knew that there was more, and all I knew was that I was on the journey to keep following the dots until. And but meanwhile, as my personal development, self-development was rocking along, I started working. So my working life, and this is the thing about our entire life. It's not. My business is made up of everything I've ever done. um, it's not just spiritual wellness and psychological well-being. Everything I've ever done comes into every session, every conversation. And I actually started as a Coles checkout chick, so I hated school. Felt I wasn't good at it because in hindsight they just weren't teaching the topics that I was interested in, and I didn't know that at the time. But I left after I kind of went from shy introvert, never saying anything, to standing up for myself, and then always with that, when you go from one to the other, you're usually going to swing to the other side of the pendulum. So I kind of went from being really shy and bullied to maybe becoming a little bit of a bully and quite rebellious, and then that kind of came to a head because the other thing that I've always had going for me in my life is the right people at the right time, the right people at the right time intervening, so that I got deterred. I got deterred from paths I would have gone down, bad paths,
yeah.
and they put me right back on track.
Yeah.
Right. And it might have upset me and it might have hurt me at the time. And then later I've gone, darn it, that was the very best thing. That person on a soul level, like that soul bloody got me back on the straight and narrow. So I actually became quite rebellious and I would have gotten into a lot of trouble. I could have gone down a completely different path. But the guy I was seeing, who was, a little bit rough, he broke up with me. And he said that he broke up with me. He said to somebody else, I was devastated. I was so in love with him. And he said to someone else that he broke up with Michelle because she was a good girl when I started going out with her, and she's changing. She's becoming one of us,
Ah,
right?
okay.
And so then he dumped me, so I didn't have that life anymore, and I was at home, and but I was bold enough by then to say to mum and dad, I'm not going back to school. They said, fine, you have to get a job. And so I got a job as a Coles checkout chick. And those 3 months were I met amazing people. There were lots of beautiful lessons in that experience that I would draw upon years later. And but what I got to learn in that 3 months was this is not where I want to be for the rest of my life. And so I was lucky enough too to have a father who could afford to send me, back in those days, secretarial school. So off I went to secretarial school, became qualified, did a business course, became qualified to work in an office because you had to be qualified back then, not now. And then I became a junior clerk. So running alongside my self-development was Michelle going from Coles checkout chick to, because once I started working, I found I found what I was good at. I had a great work ethic. I had an ability to learn really quickly. I was a really good organizer. I loved working. I really loved it,
Yeah.
and they loved me loving it because I helped them. I
Yeah.
helped all these people, and they loved me. And so I really started to grow in this confidence I'd never had before because I was appreciated, and you know, but I was also curious and I had to be challenged. So after a couple of years, I went from junior clerk to computer operator. Computers were just starting, to PA, to office manager, and then learning lessons all the while in the corporate space. I was learning lessons. I wasn't a great communicator. I wasn't a great conflict resolution person. I had shit communication skills, quite frankly. I couldn't articulate.
It's hard to imagine that
I
now.
know. I
But
was so
can I
so
just
shit.
ask
Yeah.
though in that, because like I can totally appreciate that, and speaking to lots of entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
it's almost like if you have a viewpoint, a lens that you failed in that start,
Yes.
but doing what you do now, because this is probably like the longest standing career that you've had, could you have done it without all?
No. It was all the steps I needed to be able to do what I'm doing now, and that's what I'm always passionate about. Saying to people that it's such a step by step. I could never do it. I could never be on the radio. 25-year-old Michelle, forget about it. Maybe even 30-year-old. In fact, I started spruiking when I went from office then to someone again, right? A friend said to me she had this new job, and I said, "Oh, what is it?" And she said, "Blah blah." And she goes, "I work from 5 to 9 or 5 to 10." And by that stage, I was like, that struck me, and I was like, "Oh, can you do work outside of 9 to 5?" And she was like, "Yeah, but this da, da, da." I was like, "Well, I want that. How can I do that? I don't want to be stuck on 9 to 5 anymore." So I was late 20s by this stage. Well, the only jobs going that were outside ordinary office hours were telemarketing and sales. And guess what Michelle needed to learn next? Because she hated selling. So I just went hours, loved the hours because then I could just play all day, right? And so I got a job as a telemarketer. Telemarketing grew into customer sales, and then grew into customer service, then grew into becoming a team leader. And as a team leader, that's what I'd loved all along anyway. Of course, the counselling, the supporting others, the helping others. And that was the best part of being a team leader at Telstra. I loved helping the team with, where are you now? Where do you want to be? Oh, I know how you can get here. And I just kept picking up all of those tools, right? And yeah, and then I started spruiking as well. I started spruiking in shopping centres. And again, you're gonna love this, Emma. And again, this was a friend of mine out of the blue. This was a friend of mine, and she rang up and said, "Oh, Lois, her mother-in-law had a promotions business, and they would set up a kitchen in a shopping centre, and they would cook easy meals, nothing, not to be a chef, and they would spruik." And she goes, "Oh, can you, Lois is looking for a hand. Can you come and give us a hand?" I thought, "Oh yeah, that'd be fun, something different, right?" Get there, and both of us go to Lois. "We're not doing that." And she was like, "Oh no, you don't have to spruik. Like, I'll do that. You just cook." And she had easy recipes. It was fun. I was having a laugh with my girlfriend. Then suddenly Lois did this. So none of where I'm at was designed. She just suddenly went, "Oh hey," and I turned around. She goes, "Here you go," and she just stuck the microphone in my face. And what's a girl to do? I mean,
Wow, a
I'm just not one
microphone
to
in the
cop
face.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I'm just not one to, I just always
Find
had that
something to
thing.
talk about.
Yeah. And so she goes, "Don't worry about it." She goes, "Don't worry. It's down low. No one can hear you." But I'd already been listening to her, somehow picking it up. And anyway, so I started talking, and that's how, of course, then once I started talking, you couldn't get the two of us off that bloody microphone.
I'm shocked to hear that, Michelle. Honestly,
I know, right?
I
But
love
that's
it.
it. Actually went from that to so every single piece I picked up, every single piece of me that I discovered along the way, that I grew through all of those experiences, became, the fuel that helped me to do everything I've done. Honestly,
I look, I've always really been inspired by that attitude from you, because it's never, you never view it as a waste of time or a failed.
no,
It's,
no,
there's some kind of learning that you, and it's possibly why we get along so well, because I'm
yeah,
very much like, what can I
yeah,
take from this? Because surely if I've
yes,
experienced it, there is something that I can take. And if it's only, don't fucking do that again, then that's excellent
exactly.
too, like I'll take that. Um, what can you do?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So then how many years? Because what this is how we became a lot more connected,
Yes,
was through our wellness community, which is, so I actually don't
yes,
fully understand how that all came about, because I just was like,
yeah,
here I am, part of it.
yay,
Yes, like,
yeah.
ta-da, I've arrived. So I actually want to understand. So you've got all of
Yes,
that beautiful learning and progression. You've got your
yeah.
business basics, like to run an
Exactly.
organization.
So, and so what happened then, Anne, by the time I got to studying it earnestly, and that beautiful school in Langwarrin, I'll always thank Mel for that opportunity. Up until then, it was just my hobby, but I studied with Mel, and then Mel invited me to teach. And that's how I became a teacher then. I'd had that progressive teaching journey in the corporate field, but that's how I became a teacher in the spiritual. And initially, it was teaching. I loved teaching. But when it came to one-on-one, you probably wouldn't believe it, I didn't like that. I didn't want to do numerology readings, right? I didn't want to do that. I was happy to teach. I was happy to. So then I went from teaching, then it was a journey to get to one-on-one coaching, right?
Mm.
And then it was a journey to get to speaking on the stage. And each step of the way, again, I have to say, it was not a goal. I didn't sit down and say, "Oh, I want to be a teacher. Oh, I never ever did that. But my friend, how I got into that was my friend said she was teaching. And then I was like, oh, well, if you're teaching, I should be teaching too, because I've always loved this stuff just like you. So how can I do that? Was my thing. How can I do that too? And then with the wellness community, every single experience has always elevated me to something more. And this is why it rubs me up the wrong way when I hear guys, mostly my lovers, but that's a whole other topic, say, oh, well, this is who I am. I'm not going to change. Well, that's okay. But as you said before, fail to change, well, then expect to stay the same. Because
Yeah.
for me, everything good, great, and wonderful that came next for me absolutely came as the result of me having changed, transformed, having grown somehow. I am not the same person even 5 days ago, probably. So how the wellness community came about was the exact same, um, what's that word? Catalyst, like everything else in my life. So I had, um, I had been building. I was Michelle Scott. So I went from teaching to one-on-one. Then I became Michelle Scott numerologist.
Mm.
And by the time I became Michelle Scott numerologist, I really had three passions at that time. To be honest, I was equally passionate about let's call it hand analysis, palm reading. I loved hand analysis, and I also love dream analysis. But in 2010, I knew that in order to become a specialist in something, I had to pick one. Like I
Yeah.
had lots of tools in the kit, lots of interests that harks back to my hidden passion, 5 in numerology, and that's when I picked numerology. And I'm so glad I did, because then I really went down. When you really narrow your focus and go down into something, you go so much deeper. And this is how I became, I guess, the numerologist that you see before you, because I probably wasn't. Prior to that, I had some knowledge of this and this and that, but that's when I went down the numerology, and then that led to speaking. That led to be then at the same time, I also found this beautiful big goddess group through Luann. And that led to all these amazing women that I started to attract, and we were all doing our thing and loving each other, doing. that thing, and then I started to speak on stage. I was invited first to speak at Luann's gathering, and then others invited me to their gatherings because of that. So everything was just incremental, one step leading to the next step. And then finally, then I got to after the speaking, I started speaking in small groups. Then I got to speaking on the big stage at one of Luann's events. That was in front of 130 people, and that was amazing. So that took me into another different realm. And then I started. Then I was bold enough and confident enough to start. I was always creating my own courses, but just running them in my own space. But then I started approaching yoga centers, and then I started running my courses through other people's centers. I started talking to people and really opening up my mouth about who I am and what I do and how I can help you and help your business and be in the space. I was actually always our wellness community, because even before I became a teacher in the field, that friend I've been talking about, they were already doing things, and I started marketing them because I was good at that. They were both doing tarot, and I said, well, how about we create tarot parties? And I booked several events for them. And I'm just remembering now. And I booked several events for them, and they were, the practitioners, and I was the agent. And then there was a little bit of disgruntled, and when that disgruntled happened, and I got put in a position of feeling as if I had done something wrong,
Yeah.
when in actual fact, all I wanted to do was help them. Then actually that was the catalyst. I went, you know what? I can do what you're doing. I can do what you're doing, and I'll do it for me. So I was actually, when I looked back, but before the wellness community, when I looked back at my experience, I thought, I was always trying to market others, help others, promote others. The wellness community was just the biggest incarnation of that to date. So what happened with the wellness community was I came back after 3 years traveling with Kim. We came back here, and through a friend of a friend, um, this person was opening up their wellness center, and they approached me to come and manage it for them. And as Michelle does, I honestly I am always, which has been to my detriment. Money's never been the motivator, um, often to my detriment. But at the same time, it's always been about, I just go to whom energizes me and what energizes me. And this stuff has always energized me. So if someone so I basically went to help this wellness center get off the ground. I wasn't being paid for any of it. I poured all of my heart and soul into it, as I pour into everything and anything I
Yeah.
do. And that went for about 3 months, and by then, I'd been burnt a number of times before then. So at some point, Michelle did go, oh, I probably should have a contract. I probably should. Then I started to talk to them about that. So we were in the midst of kind of getting that going, because everything I'd already done I wasn't being paid for, and I was in the midst of organising for them at the wellness centre this big, beautiful day.
Do you know what? That's when
Remember
we
that?
caught up.
Yeah.
That's about the time that we caught up and we had a coffee together. And I
Right.
remember
About
you
that.
telling me about this event, and I understood
Yes.
the background and what was
Yeah.
happening. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and so
So that's what I was organising. But as I
yeah,
said, I wasn't being paid for any of this.
yes,
And then at some point, what happened was another. But see, that's the universe. The universe didn't want me going down that path. So the universe always intervenes at the right time to go, boom, right?
yeah,
And so what happened was we had a little bit of disgruntled in that situation, and what happened was I kind of went, okay, well, that's not for me then. And then, but see, if I hadn't gone down that path, then I wouldn't have realized that I had the network I had. Actually, I had never thought about running events because I wouldn't have thought I would have liked it. It was a lot of work. But, in organizing and bringing all of that together, people and tools and all of that stuff that it takes to create an event, I loved it. I
yes,
was really enjoying it, really enjoying it. So what happened was, although that didn't work out, I realized that I already had what it took to do it myself, and that's how it became. And then I brought all of those things together. But see, in the past, I mean, I ran a retreat too with I used to run Wellbeing days with Wendy and Karina. It was my idea that got that started. I brought Karina and Wendy together because I used to train with Wendy, and Karina was my naturopath guru.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Right. And so I was talking to Wendy one day. I said, you know what? Between the three of us, we could have these well-being days because I've got the mindset stuff and the meditation. Wendy's the yoga chick, and even though we all kind of interrelate, right? And Karina's got all the beautiful knowledge, and Karina will tell you that that's when she started public speaking. Her first ever get up and speak was at the one of the well-being days, and the Sacred Goddess retreat. Margie was already running her own little thing, and she invited me to come into that space. And I thought she meant as a partner, but she actually meant like come and speak. But I thought
Ah,
she meant let's organize it together. So there was this misunderstanding, but it actually led to me bringing Karina in, and the three of us ran it together. And then I brought Andy in, the yoga teacher, and I got another chick in who did this, and I got the other chick in that did the music. Erica did the music. Um, so when I looked back on it, I'd always been doing this. I'd always been bringing, because I absolutely fundamentally believe that together everyone achieves more, that we
100%.
can absolutely all grow, but we have to grow
Together.
together. We can't do it on our own, not in this business anyway. You might, I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of us, and I tell you, no one's getting there on their own. It's just not possible. And then when I looked around at lots of other stories, you if you hear any story about the Rolling Stones or Queen or any band, any group, any comedians, they travel in a pack. Actors travel in a pack. They all create a network. So, comedians, when one makes a movie, they get all their buddies to come and play all the different parts,
Oh,
right?
yeah, and that's seen throughout it. And
Yeah,
I would have gone to one of those events, I'm pretty sure,
yeah,
a few years
yeah, right.
ago.
So that's how, and so when it came to the wellness, but what had never happened in the past, Emma, was that I always was the facilitator. And to be honest, in small parts, I would constantly kind of have some kind of disappointment about it. So the wellness community became, finally I got what the universe was trying to tell me and the direction they were leading me in. And Karina had always said that you need to be at the helm.
Yes.
You need to be at the helm, right? And then that's how it finally, because I never had the confidence before that. So by the time I got the wellness community, it was absolutely coming fully into. I'd always been the reluctant, and someone said this to me at that Australian College of Metaphysics. Raymond had said to me, he called me the reluctant messiah. And I was only in my 20s then. I was like, what are you talking about? He said, you should, because we would chat. Raymond was the massage therapist. He called himself Meta Massage, because yeah, he must have been Reiki. He must have been doing all that sort of stuff as well,
Yeah.
right? And he said, Michelle, you need to talk about all this stuff. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm a team leader at Telstra. What are you what are you talking about? And look at me now. If he saw me now. So yes, so I was always like that, Emma. I loved one-on-one, and I loved teaching. But the events, I could get up there and do it, but I always had that little bit of I just always had this reluctance. There was always a little bit of resistance. And what happened with the wellness community after that disappointing experience, I just really, within me, I just absolutely stood up to the plate. And I finally went, I'm getting goosebumps now. I finally said to myself, this is it. It's over. That reluctance is over. Like, get the fuck over it. This is what I've always wanted to do. This is what I've always done, willingly or unwillingly. And it's time to accept the responsibility and to step up and stop fluffing around.
Ah,
Just do
and
it.
I think there's a couple of things I would like
Yeah.
to sort of highlight there. One is I love the progression and I love how
Yeah.
you've shared it so beautifully. And also the flaws involved in that, having
Yeah.
to build confidence
Yeah.
because, any entrepreneur that I know or
Yeah.
healer, in any kind of space, when you go out and work on your own, there is a different kind of confidence that is
Yeah.
required than if you're
Yeah.
working for somebody else because you've got the backing of a business. You got to
Definitely.
back yourself. So,
Yes.
but I love that when you said, you're stepping into the responsibility of it, like,
Yes.
boom. Because when you do, when you go, I'm actually going to own this shit, like, this is
Own it.
what I want to do, I'm going to be
Yes.
fully responsible for it all, absolutely
Mm.
changes everything.
Changed everything. And you know what? It was instant too. The minute I went, that's it. I'm doing it. This is what I'm doing, how I'm doing. And I never ever stressed and strained. Like, I'm going through a little bit of a back, I've taken a little bit of a step back at the moment because it isn't clear. But from that moment up until the end of last year, like, I just never stressed or strained about any of it. Like, everything fell into place, and I just really followed the dots. The people just appeared when they needed to be there. The ideas just flowed. I never, it just all came. It was just a beautiful, and if I hadn't, and then it just grew. It just grew so quickly and so beautifully, and we attracted so many beautiful people. And it just filled me, it fills me right up. Like, even yesterday, Karina and I talking on the radio, and we both go, at the end of it, we go, oh, now I just want to go out and talk. I just want to go out and share all this stuff with everybody because it's so energizing.
Yep.
So energizing. But yes, when you get back to the progression of it, um, again, I'm so passionate about that. I'm so passionate about how we look at where people are, and we want what they have now, without understanding all the steps they took
Oh,
before. Because when you understand the steps that people take before they get, even if it's a negative thing, even if it's a negative thing, if we can actually, because I love true crime, right? I've always been so attracted to the psychological workings of myself and others. And no one gets to either a positive moment or a negative moment just like that. Like, there's such a story. And if we can appreciate that, so, when I look at Oprah, I can admire her, but I don't, uh, there's no competitiveness or comparison if you understand that that's not who that person, that's the person today. They were not that person before. So if I want to be Oprah, well, what steps did she take to become who she is? Because if that's what I want to become, then if I put in place the steps she's already taken, then I'm going to become the Oprah of my little world, and that's what happened. Um, but instead we look at where people are, envy what they have, which builds resentment, and then really doesn't make us feel good about ourselves. And the minute you're not feeling good about yourself, um, it's demotivating, it's uninspiring, and you're absolutely not going to get out of bed. You're not going to get
no.
out of bed with an attitude and a being like that. So yeah, yeah,
I love
everything
that. And because
everything builds
I
one
really,
step at a time.
yeah, and I think that's really important when people, when you're looking at those around you, it's really easy
Yes,
in the world
yes,
that we live in. It's absolutely banged into us to compare, to compete, to,
yes,
and that
yes.
we're, like it's a you and me rather than actually it's us.
Yeah,
It's me and you, not you or I. Like it's
yes,
we're together on this. But both of us are nine, so we fully understand that
yes,
that's, I need that. Um,
yeah,
but I do love that because it is important for people to understand. Anyone in business who's wanting to create something, it's going to come in steps, and it might feel like a back step, a side step,
that's right.
like what the fuck am I doing step. But
Yes,
at every part of it, when you can look back, I think that's the most beautiful part. When you can
yeah,
look back and go, oh my God, like I did
that's
that
what I
because
love.
of this. I'm often doing paperwork stuff and I think,
Yeah,
man, without all those office jobs and running my own little business previously,
yes,
I don't know that I'd have actually the concentration to
exactly,
do this. the
exactly.
will, the will to get through it at times.
Mm,
Because
absolutely.
let's face it, there's parts of owning your own business that you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, but you just got to do it.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
I want to know, how do you then, because it is a lot, how do you keep focused on your vision?
Mm. And that's a journey. That's a real journey. You know, I think once I committed to the spiritual wellness stuff, it's still a journey though. It's absolutely still a journey. But once I committed to, okay, this is This is what energizes me. This is a calling. Actually, I love this. I'll just explain this little bit too. This is because, again, so many mentors along the way, so many fabulous books along the way, so many amazing experiences that all have given me the mindset and the being that I have today. So Elizabeth Gilbert, I loved this when I learnt this about Elizabeth Gilbert. I did a little short course of hers, and she had a reader write in and say, um, a reader write in and say, he was in IT. He went to university. He's got a degree in IT. He's in an IT job. He earns lots and lots of money, but it's not his passion. You know, he wants to be a writer. He's a creative, and he wants to write. But the thing is that he's in America. He's high up, and the money that he earns goes towards helping his family who are back in India, right? So he has that responsibility of looking after his family. And so he says to her, how can I do what you do? How can I be in my craft and not to feel bad about not taking care of, a family? And her answer was for me. Her answer was for me. It was beautiful. She said, look, there's four things, right? There's four things. There's job, there's hobby, there's job, there's career, and there's vocation, right? She said, now, hobby, she said, a hobby is nice. It's nice to have a hobby, but we don't all need to have a hobby, but it's nice to have a hobby. She said, job, everybody needs a job, right? Everybody needs a job. She said, when I was in my 20s, she said, I wanted to be an independent, grown up person. I had a car and I had things I needed and wanted. So I worked 3 jobs, right? Everybody needs to have a job because you need to have money in order to survive in the world. She said, career. Not everybody needs to have a career, but if you have a career, then it better be doing something that you absolutely love, because a career is going to ask more of you than 9 to 5. That's going to be where all of your energy goes, right? Outside of your personal life. She said, but when you have a job, you start at 9, you finish at 5. You start at 10, you finish at 3, right? So then all the time after that you can spend on your vocation, if you have one, right? Now, she said, my vocation was writing. And she said, and I'll tell you, I was writing long before they paid me to write. I was writing long before I became famous for writing. And she said, and when people are no longer reading my books, I will still be writing because it's a calling, right? And she said, and if you can't earn the money that you need through the vocation, you get a job and you just do the job that doesn't take much out of you. And then every minute after and over and beyond that, you're spending on your vocation. She said, I was lucky. I was lucky that my vocation, what I love to do, became Eat, Pray, Love, right? And people, and she's an author and she's published and she's rich. And then when I heard that, I was like, thank you. Thank you. Because I haven't always been able to work full time. I haven't been able to always earn a full time income from the shit I love. I was a single mother. At the time that I was building all of this, personally developing, professionally developing, and also developing spiritually in my wellness journey, I was living a life. I was a single mother. I bought my house. There were so many things I achieved as a single woman that is to be applauded and to be very proud of. But in order to do that, I've had to build everything around that and build it slowly and build it where I could. But that's why it's a vocation, because I did it long before I was even getting paid for it. And I've done it when I haven't been paid for it. And I'll keep doing it. Like I said to my son, even if the wellness community never makes any money, from here on in, I'll always do what I do for no other reason than I'm absolutely compelled. I am compelled. So how do I keep the vision? It's just in me.
Yeah.
It's in every fiber of my being. I have actually so often wanted and wondered why I couldn't be satisfied. Michelle, why can't you just be really proud of I was the eldest of 3 children. I was a mother to my brothers growing up. I'm Gen X.
Yeah.
So we came from South Africa. I was 10 years old and mum and dad had to work. And so they were gone from 6 in the morning until 6 at night. So my brothers will tell you, She was bloody freaking our mother, and they didn't always like the way I mothered them. So and that's again when you
I
come
mean,
to
really,
do
sister mother. Let's be clear about
sister
that.
mother,
You
when
know.
you come to do what you come to do, and I only recognize that in hindsight, then you're doing it from the get-go. That is already your purpose. So from the moment my brother was born, I was the leader. I was already the leader because I was the eldest. I was already taking care of people because I was the eldest. And so mum and dad had to work, so I was cooking and cleaning and doing all those things. Right, I was already being prepared. This is what the soul came to do. We're not here to do those big things. Those big things are great, but along the way I learnt responsibility in family. Along the way I learnt a sense of duty. Along the way I learnt commitment and work ethic, and how it's not all about me all the time. Sometimes you do have to do things you don't want to do, but they're the right thing to do. And if I didn't do them, you don't have to do them, but I know me, and if I didn't do them, I'd feel bad about not doing them. I would feel shamed. That would affect my confidence, and I wouldn't be proud of myself. And then that would just take me down a spiral, that I'm not prepared to go down. So along the way, you just pick up all of these different things, and um, I could be proud of that. When mum died, when my brother died, and all of the things that I did for the family, I'm the one that steps in and does all these things because I can, and because it's in me to do it. So it's the same with the spiritual stuff. I'm like, Michelle, why can't you just be satisfied that you actually take good care of your family? You're a good employee. You're a good mom. Why can't you just be happy already? And I am happy with all of that. There's no issue. Uh, but I literally go to bed and I watch things, see things, and I'm like, oh, the ideas are always flowing, and I'm always about, oh, that'd be really good to share over there. Oh, but I've also realized in my 50s, Emma, it's really quite terrific, because I have realized in my 50s that every brick that laid this foundation in spiritual wellness for me, the person I'm helping the most
Mm.
at this point in time is me. Is me. Everything I ever learned is helping me, because I've really found this has been the most challenging for me. So I go back to Elizabeth Gilbert, that this is my vocation, I'll do it anyway. I still have a part-time job to supplement my income. I would love it when it gets to the stage that I've been full-time, part-time, anytime. I'm working on that at the moment. So when it comes to the vision, yeah, it's always there, but when it's not there, I just wait.
Ooh.
I just wait.
I think
So
that's
I've been
really
I've been
powerful
waiting.
because,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff out there that talks about the grind,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
doing something every single day. And it's probably something that I've learned only recently is that for my life to work, I actually don't need to be any different, for my wants
Yeah.
and desires to come into my life and to
Yeah.
be in my life. For me to ask, I don't actually need to do anything differently. Don't need to be a better person. I don't need to. I just need
No.
to ask, and then
Yeah.
allow.
Wait. Yeah.
And that's, I think, the tricky part is, which you seem to have mastered in that statement by saying,
Mm,
and then I just wait. And I think,
mm,
wow. I mean, for a lot of people out there, that's actually, I don't know, it dropped into me because that's something I've only really learned
yeah.
recently. And I'm still,
Yeah.
my ego is still, like a little bit of fuckery going on there every now and again. Like, just has a bit of a laugh at me, like while I'm
I
trying to
love
be
it.
patient
Little
and
bit
all
of
zen about
fuckery.
it. And then it goes, we're just going to poke the beast. Fuck off. So I do love that because I think that's, like when people are talking about having some
Yeah.
kind of vision in their life, whether it's
Mm,
work or play or whatever it is, relationship, there is a level of patience.
yeah.
You can't put a timer on and go,
No.
and I'll
No.
have that at 3 o'clock.
Yes. And that's what I also feel about the current climate, that we want more than we've earned. We want to get there quicker than it realistically takes. And we want it now. We want it now. Oh,
Well,
I
I mean,
made that
that's been
wish.
coming on for the
I
past
made
10
that
years.
wish 5 minutes ago. Why hasn't it arrived?
Well, but that's been coming on for the past 10 years, like
Exactly.
bad
I know.
diets, 12 weeks, lose
Yeah.
weight, changes
Yeah.
your life, and, work with
Yes.
me for 3 weeks and we'll transform your
Yes.
life. And I mean,
And when it
that's one
comes
of
to
the
the
things that I
spiritual
say.
journey and the wellness journey, sorry, no shortcuts. Well, maybe there is a little bit of a shortcut compared to the journey I've been on and you've been on, because now there's more teachers, there's more resources, there's a whole lot more, less stigma, and there's a whole lot more acceptance. So maybe you can get there quicker these days than we did, or I did. But certainly, you know, I mean, this is our life.
Or do
This
you
is
think
our
it's just that we
life.
weren't? I often look back and think, I think the teachers were there, but it's about were we ready to find them? And I think now a lot more people are ready to find them. A lot more
Mm,
people are getting
mm.
to a point quicker in life where they're like, there has to be
Yes.
more than this external bullshit. There
Yeah.
has to be more within
Mm,
me.
yes.
But it's definitely layered over with we can do it in. Well, I mean, I work with clients for 6 months and would still say to them,
Yeah.
this isn't the end. Like, this is a
No.
platform for you,
No,
and we're not
exactly.
fixing all your shit in here, but you have the tools to do it
The
yourself
tools,
and to
exactly. And
continue
that
to
and
do
it's
it.
gonna shift, and it's gonna move and shift and change. You know, when life happens, then you get to test whether you've learnt anything or not,
And
you know?
you know what? And how's the universe though, right? You know how you go, I've totally got this, right? Like I've
Exactly.
learned that. And then the universe goes, show me.
Let's
All right,
exactly.
you
Let's
show
let's
me.
see
And it
about that.
presents you with something that you
Yep.
might go,
Yep.
God damn it. Like,
Eh,
I've still got a little bit in there.
yeah,
But,
yeah. And you know what it is with nines? Especially that is especially true with the life path 9, because life path because the number 9 is leads by example. So in
hmm.
order to do what she does, she's actually gone through it, right? And so whenever she makes a judgment, or thinks she's learnt something, or in my case, I used to make judgments in the earlier part of my life. I still do now, but I'm nowhere near the judgy, the bitchy that I was. Like, even for example, when I was, the corporate high flyer, 25, 26, I'd go to the shopping centre, and there'd be mums with babies and in prams, and my attitude would be, can you do this in your own time? Because, like, it's my lunchtime. And why are you in the way? Like, mums can go shopping anytime, right? And then I became a mum. And then I was like, okay,
Shut the fuck up, Michelle.
okay.
I used to do the same thing with my sister-in-law on the phone, where she'd be, because my nieces and nephews are older, and
Yes.
constantly getting disrupted. And in my brain, I never said it to her, but in my brain, I was like, can you
What's
not
going on?
just?
Can you?
But then I had kids, and I
Yes.
remember calling her one day and saying, I'm just going to say sorry. She
I'm
goes,
so
what for?
sorry.
She would have never known that I thought it, but I said
Yes.
every time, I was like, Jesus. And she goes, now you get it. And I'm like, oh
Now you
my
get it.
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't
And
even go
that's
to the
and
toilet by myself.
Yeah. And that's what
I
I
loved
love.
it.
Again, that's what I love, when you have that foundation, that nothing is in the way, that everything's on the way. When you really are on a spiritual journey, then I see in you what's already in me, or I see in you what's ready to be developed in me. If you have, I just found that having that spiritual foundation was liberating. I found that it really freed me from a lot of bullshit. When you're sitting in that, this is me, and that's you, then I'm judgy about how you behave, and what you do and when you do, and it's always about me and you, and I never see ways in which to learn, and
Mm.
I sit in all the negative emotions. But when I'm like, when I see it, and that's how I've actually done all of my learning. I see things in others, and I think, oh, I can be a bit like that. Oh, is that how that looks? Oh, is that how? Oh, okay.
Do you know which, and
That's actually how I've learned. I'm like, oh, I can be a little bit like that.
that's a
Oh, what a
soul practice. So when you're in soul,
yeah,
you'll suddenly be
yeah,
reflecting everyone and you
yeah,
see it
all
and
the
you go,
time, all the
ooh,
time. And my
oh,
son
well,
and I are
that's what
really
that
good.
looks
And
like.
it's hard to explain this to people. That doesn't mean that we're all a work in progress. That doesn't mean I'm perfect. What it does mean, the 20-year-old Michelle compared to the 27-year-old Michelle compared to the 57-year-old Michelle, that one would stay in her, you know, in that energy of competitive comparison, blame, resentment, a whole like a whole lot longer. Whereas me now, I might still have a little outburst, and then I'll go, oh, like I'll be in the car, I'll have a little road rage moment, and I'll go, and that's how spiritual's done, Michelle. Good on you.
Oh yeah, when I have
What a
my moments,
spiritual
I'm like,
being
oh
you
yeah,
are,
we're zen as fuck right now. Yeah. No. I mean, look,
right?
yeah. Look, I even had to
Yeah.
say to my kids this morning because I was cranky and I
Yeah.
had no particular reason why.
Yeah.
And then I had to say to them, I can't actually connect. Like,
Define it.
I
Yes.
can't have a conversation with you right now because I'm snippy and I don't want to be
Yeah.
that way with you.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm like, okay, like at
Yeah.
least that is that spiritual awareness that it gives you to be able to
Yep.
say, this is
Yeah.
me.
And then it's liberating. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
because then
okay.
suddenly everyone has a great morning and you're not being an
And
asshole.
that's right, right? And it's a good, and I think that's what's missing. I think these days that there's not enough of that self-reflection, that self-awareness, that, oh, honestly, and Dan Millman put this beautifully. Dan Millman, and I got that from one of his books as well. If out of what people say about you, if you kind of put it like this, oh, gee, you're a bitch, Michelle. And instead of going, oh, rah, 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 well, you know what? Can I think of someone who's had an experience with me that might think I am a bitch? There's somebody out there who doesn't like me. There's somebody out there who does think that I am everything that, and then when you can see it like that, then you can kind of go, oh, okay, that's fine. And you don't get attached to what others are thinking, saying, doing. It's
Yeah,
liberating.
those moments are amazing when you can go, yeah, yeah, I probably am. And I
Anyway,
am
we've
to you
probably
right
gone
now.
right off
And
track.
it's
I'm sorry
okay.
about that, love.
Yeah, that's okay. That's how it's come across you, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I've absolutely adored this conversation. It's been beautiful, and I am going to have your links up to getting
Excellent.
connected. I want to get to the final three what's, but before then, how can people connect with you, Michele?
Beautiful. So, obviously, come to our wellness community, which is a group on a beautiful group on Facebook. I also have my page, so at Michelle Scott on air on Facebook. We have the Wellness Conversations talk show every Tuesday, 3 to 4 p.m. on KC Radio. 97.7 FM, and we've got our wellnesscommunity.com.au website, and we actually also have the school as well, and I think that's .org. I think that's our
Yes.
wellnessschool.org.
But if you go to our wellness community, there'll
They'll
be
find
a
us.
link. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. All right, so there's final three what questions for you.
Ooh.
What is well-being to you?
Ooh, what is well-being? I think, I can actually talk about, because I didn't bring it into any of that, any of my chat earlier, I can actually talk about PERMA. So in positive psychology, I loved how this makes it really, brings it into a framework of simplicity. So well-being to me, if all of these areas were tick, 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 we would experience that satisfaction, that fulfillment, like just to get to that content in life.
Yeah.
And PERMA is positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments. So accomplishments, goals which give us hope, right? Goals which give us hope, that vision, having that vision for ourselves, meaning. We all have to find some meaning for ourselves in life. Relationships. I never like to hear that they're a failure. I know that we say that, but no relationship is ever a failure. We're always learning something about ourselves through connection with that individual. Engagement is, how do I engage with myself and others? So there's so much work you can do around that. So to me, if well-being is me absolutely managing my emotions and not being managed by them.
Ah,
It's
yeah.
absolutely having fulfilling relationships, and I'm not saying perfection, okay? If you have a fulfilling relationship, what that means is that you communicate, that you can resolve conflict. And if you can't, then obviously you have to move on from that. And if you've got meaning in your life, and you've got some goals for yourself that energize you,
Yes.
then that's how I feel well in life. And that's how I like to help others feel well
I
in life.
love it. So, what are your must do daily well-being practices?
Ooh, a lovely return to yoga. Thank you very much. Which has wavered. So I learned yoga, self-taught at 25. And since then, lots of classes, lots of different teachers. Um, love, love, love. If I'm doing that every day, that is awesome. I don't always do that every day. journaling. I don't always do that every day, but what I do every single day is mindfulness.
Beautiful.
So affirmations, how I talk, how I think, what I'm thinking about, what I'm talking about, why, following that train of thought. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? So I feel like I have a really
Yeah, yeah.
rich inner life in that sense.
I
Mm.
love it. And so, I mean, it's kind of answered my last question, but I'm still going to ask it anyway. What impact does it have on your life?
It's imperative, honestly. It's really imperative. As I said, I've had a bit of a stint of not paying attention to yoga, and it really affected me. At the same time, all of this stuff kind of went up, and then when your personal stuff goes up, your personal care can tend to go down, and I do get affected. I'm very emotional and very heart centered. So when things are getting me right here, it tends to show up in my body.
Yeah, yeah.
And the very first thing I should be doing is paying attention to it. And another lesson learned from Michele. So when I'm not doing all these things, I get away with it for a year or two, and then I go, ugh.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's imperative. It's so important for me to, um, and if I'm not, I can't even, I don't even know anymore what it's like to not have the mindset. Well, I do know I do know what it's like to sit in the negativity. I go into that every time I have another heartbreak in life, and every time I go into it, I'm reminded that that doesn't serve me. It doesn't matter if that person is or isn't, that person's in the wrong, or that's unfair, or that's unjust, or all of that stuff might be right, but
Yeah.
it makes me very wrong. It
I love
ruins it ruins everything for me. And the minute I go, right, pull your pull your big girl blouse up and get back into your positive space, which is managing my hurts positively,
oh,
managing my healing positively. And the minute I do that, by Jove, things change immediately for me.
that is I love that. That's a beautiful way to finish the conversation today. I absolutely love it. So, thank you so much for being here. It's been a beautiful conversation.
Thank
Thanks to
you.
everyone for sharing your time and watching. Please like and share and subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Connected
To
Conversations.
connect with Michele, head to her Facebook group, Our Wellness Community. To connect with me, head to emmamuir.com. Enjoy your day and thanks for sharing your time.